Hey, fourth grade. Sorry I'm getting to you a little later than I usually do today. I had some end of the day meetings, but I still want to read for you. So today is Wednesday, April 8th. You have your normal book club reading if you haven't already finished your book club. In writing, you're working towards finishing watching your classmates' videos. So in total, you should be writing notes on 6 videos. For today, you should be about halfway there. Ideally, you should be having 3 videos watched and the notes sheet completed, and you'll be doing something similar tomorrow with your last 3 videos. In math, you are completing everything for 14-7, and so that is the reteaching and the practice sheet. And tomorrow, since we have a short week before our spring break, will end up being our quiz. So that's why we're getting 14-7 done in one day instead of 2. In social studies, you should be reading, highlighting, and making your miniature paragraph about the landmarks section of your Southwest packet. Those notes are due on Friday morning by 8 a.m. Make sure you are caught up with your specials. A lot of your specials teachers are allowing you this week to catch up from previous weeks. So you make sure you have nothing looming over your head that you have to worry about when you come back from spring break. I'll mention too now, I'll mention later that I'm looking forward to seeing as many of your faces as possible for our quick spring break check-in as a class using, I always say it wrong, Hangouts Meet by Google. Hangouts Meet by Google is the app that you should be downloading if you haven't already. That is also the application that Miss Pasika uses if you've been using her for homework help this week, or if you have meetings with her. She is our special classroom helper moving forward, so that is really exciting. So I look forward to seeing as many of your faces as I can before we start spring break, and I will be in that video invitation tomorrow between 1 and 2. You'll also have the opportunity to meet our long-term substitute while I'm on maternity leave. Her name is Ms. Piat. She is super awesome, and you're going to love her just as much as I do. So I hope you at least come introduce yourself then tomorrow in Hangouts Meet by Google between 1 and 2. We'll be on Miss Piat and I from 1 until 2. You can come for all of that time, or you can come for just some of that time. But it's just a time for us to talk, answer questions, and catch up before we start a spring break. So, with that being said, I think it's time for us to read. So we are on chapter 23 of Maniac McGee, and we met a new character. We met this old man named Grayson, who works at the zoo, and he has discovered a Maniac sleeping with the buffalo, and he's taken him in, and it sounds like Maniac has made a new friend. So we'll have to see what happens to Maniac and now Grayson moving forward. Has Maniac found a new home, or is he still between places? So we're on chapter 23. Grayson got the crimpets all right, the cookies. He bought a whole box of 3 packs. With 10 packs to a box, that was 30 butterscotch crimpets. Maniac thought he must have climbed out of that buffalo pen right into heaven. Then Grayson took Maniac home. Home for the old man was the 2 Mills YMCA. He lived in a room on the 3rd floor. But he didn't take Maniac up there. He took him downstairs to the locker room. He got him a towel and a cake of soap, told him to take off his rags, and pointed to the showers. Maniac stayed in the shower for an hour. I don't know about you, but I would get yelled at for using too much hot water if I stayed in the shower that long. He hadn't done this since his last bath with the little ones. He smiled at the thought of them shrieking and splashing. The shower needles stung his scratches, but it was good. Welcome back to town. Stinging. So is the water actually needles? No. But remember, Maniac is so dirty from traveling and staying at the zoo with the buffalo. So that's what it feels like. The water is stinging his skin. And he's thinking back to Amanda's little brother and sister and how he would help with their baths. Maniac would. When Maniac finally forced himself from the shower, he found the old man waiting with clothes. Grayson's clothes. I called the U.S. Army in a haul them buffalo rags away, he said. They came in with gas masks on, and they used tongs to pick them up and put them in a steel box. And they took the box away to bury it at the bottom of the first mine shaft they came to. Maniac couldn't stop laughing. Neither could Grayson, especially when he got a load of the kid drowning in his clothes. The clothes were too big. He was drowning in them. An hour later, after a minor shopping spree, Maniac had clothes of his own. For the rest of the afternoon, they cruised around town talking and eating crimpets. So, said the old man, now what are you gonna do? Maniac thought about it. How about a job? I could work for the park like you. Grayson didn't answer that. He said, where'd you think you're gonna stay? Maniac's answer was prompt. The baseball room. It's perfect. The tiny idea was beginning to worm its way into Grayson's head. He could barely feel it as he brushed by all the claptrap in his brain. He ignored it. He said, what about school? Maniac was silent. Some butterscotch icing had stayed behind on a wrapper. He scooped it up, mopped it with his finger, wishing it were Mrs. Beale's and not his own. Grayson was not comfortable asking questions, was even less comfortable waiting for answers. I said, what about school? Maniac turned to him. What about it? You gotta go. You're a kid, ain't you? I'm not going. But you gotta, don't you? They'll make you. Not if they don't find me. The old man just looked at him for a while, with a mixture of puzzlement and recognition, as though the fish he had landed might be the same one he had thrown away long before. Why? he said. Maniac felt why more than he ever knew why. He had to do with homes and families and school, and how a school seems sort of like a big home, but only a day home, because then it empties out. Hey, we got interrupted. Let's try this again. So a school was a big home. You can't stay there at night because it's not really a home, and you can never use it as an address because an address is where you stay at night, where you walk right in the front door without knocking, where everybody talks to each other and uses the same toaster. So all the other kids would be heading for their homes, their night homes, each of them hundreds, flocking from school like birds from a tree, scattering across town, each breaking off to his or her own place, each knowing exactly where to land. School, home. No, he wasn't going to take one without the other. If you try to make me, he said, I'll just start running. Grayson said nothing, but what the kid said actually made him feel good, though he had no idea why. And the brushing little worm of a notion, a thought, was beginning to tickle him now. He kept on driving. Chapter 24. They got back to the bandshell just as they finished the last of the crimpets. Grayson looked at his watch. Guess it's time to quit the job. But I never did today. Time for dinner, too. Grayson was joking, but Maniac was serious when he piped. Great! Where to? Dumbfounded, the old man drove back out of the park to the nearest diner, where he sat with a cup of coffee, while the boy wolfed down meatloaf and gravy, mashed potatoes, zucchini salad, and coconut custard pie. Grayson had a way of jumping into a subject without warning. It was during Maniac's dessert that he abruptly said, Them black people, they eat mashed potatoes too. Maniac thought he was kidding, then realized he wasn't. Sure, Mrs. Beale used to have potatoes a lot, mashed in every other way. Mrs. who? Mrs. Beale. Do you know the Beales? Of 728 Sycamore Street? The old man shook his head. Well, they were my family. I had a mother and a father and a little brother and sister and a sister my age and a dog. My own room, too. Grayson stared out the dining window as if digesting his information. How about meatloaf? Huh? They eat that too? Sure. Meatloaf too, and peas and corn, you name it. Cake? Maniac beamed. Oh man, you kidding? Mrs. Beale makes the best cake in the world. Grayson's eyes narrowed. Toothbrushes? They use them? Maniac fought not to smile. Absolutely. We all had our toothbrushes hanging in the bathroom. Huh, I know that, said Grayson, impatient. But is theirs the same as ours? No different that I could see. You didn't drink out of the same glass. Absolutely we did. This information seemed to shock the old man. Maniac laid down his fork. Grayson, they're just regular people like us. I was never in a house of theirs. Well, I'm telling you, it's the same. There's bathtubs and refrigerators and rugs and TVs and beds. Grayson was wagging his head. Ain't that something? Well, ain't that something? Isn't that interesting? But I love what Maniac said there about how they're no different than he could see. They're just regular people like us. But see, this is what happens when we separate from people that we're just not familiar with or give them a chance because they're different. Is we start questioning how much of a human they actually are. And that's pretty shocking nowadays to hear if that would happen. Because we all do our best to be friends with everybody. But for the time period for Maniac, remember, this was the normal thing. There was segregation or the separation of groups of people. There was the African Americans that interacted with African Americans and the white or Caucasian people that interacted only with the Caucasians or white people. They didn't mix back then. They had their own separate things, and that's a part of our American history. So, unfortunately, we need to pause there. But I want to remind you one more time that I'm so looking forward to seeing as many of your faces as I can tomorrow during our Rogahn meet using Hangouts Meet by Google. I will attach the video here for the how-to if you're still not sure if you have downloaded the correct app and signed in appropriately for the first time to Hangouts Meet by Google, so that we can see each other one more time before we start spring break. 4th grade, I hope you had an awesome day, even though it was rainy, and I look forward to hearing from you tomorrow. See you later, 4th grade.